Okay, this is about Sam Tripoli saying that Minnesota doesn't need to care about global warming because it's so cold in Minnesota. But the fact is that the Arctic is warming 4 times faster than the rest of the planet, and therefore northern Minnesota actually has winters with the minimum temperature 7 degrees Fahrenheit warmer. So there's 500 extra zettajoules of heat in the ocean accumulated since 1995. So we can see that the record high northern hemisphere temperature is actually due to a loss of Arctic sea ice volume from the extra Arctic ocean heat. The ocean heat is coming up from the Mediterranean into the Arctic, melting the ice from below. And there's 1,200 gigatons of pressurized methane in the world's largest ocean shelf, which is the East Siberian Arctic Shelf. And so an abrupt eruption of the pressurized methane is highly probable. And so the problem is that growing crops at scale is highly sensitive to temperature. So the interior of the continents are 5 degrees warmer Fahrenheit average than the global average temperature. So that makes crop failure very, very likely in the Midwest. Iowa was one rainfall away from total crop loss just a couple summers ago. So indeed, the global warming is directly threatening the world's food supply. It's already happening in Africa, where they rely on rainfall for growing their food. So they have hundreds of millions of people facing acute food insecurity, aka famine. And that's why the USAID funding is so critical right now, just to stave off massive famines. So it's basically like genocide to cut off that funding. So this is the Arctic methane release, which would then accelerate the global warming very fast. So we're facing a accelerated nonlinear feedback as runaway global warming, which then causes biological annihilation. And that's a phrase used in Google Scholar if you search biological annihilation. And even the conservation biologists have stated that large mammals have stopped evolving on Earth due to lack of habitat since the 1970s. So obviously, if we wipe out our ability to grow food at scale, then civilization collapses, and so things like nuclear power plants are no longer maintained, and so you have lots of radiation spreading around the planet. So basically you have a phase change because the Arctic is the air conditioner for the planet by reflecting the heat, and that's why you get the albedo effect. So once that ice is gone, then all of a sudden you're heating up the water much faster. And then you have the Joseph Fourier first published science 200 years ago in 1824 that the, quote, effects of human industry, end quote, would heat up Earth. And that's from the greenhouse gases. So yeah, in the 1890s in Sweden, they thought, yeah, global warming will be nice because it's cold in Sweden just like it's cold in Minnesota. But in fact, it's not nice because the global food supply will collapse very soon. And then you can't really grow food farther north because you lack the soil. Let's see. So what else do we have here? Some more of this accelerating heat in the Arctic. And any kind of storms accelerates the breakup of the ice. And so the other thing is the aerosol masking effect means that a 40% decrease in burning coal actually heats up Earth another 1 degree Celsius global average. So this whole emphasis on renewable energy actually is going to heat up Earth even faster. And so James E. Hansen is now emphasizing that the reduction of diesel pollution in the Arctic, the North Atlantic cargo ships is a big factor in increasing the atmospheric temperature. So here's where you have the warm water coming up from the Mediterranean, and when the ice disappears, then the temperature in the sea, the Arctic Ocean, heats up fast on the surface. And so then you get a huge methane release from the pressurized hydrates that are preformed methane. So it doesn't need to be created by bacteria. It's already frozen methane hydrates that are pressurized. And they're already starting to accelerate out into the atmosphere in the Arctic. And it doesn't get covered in the news. It was covered up even by the IPCC reports. They thought, well, maybe in 100 years it'll be a problem, but actually it's a problem right now. So here you have the methane hydrates destabilization. And so we're looking at the accelerating of heat in the next 5 years, thereby shutting down growing food at scale in the Midwest. And that's the breadbasket for not just the US, but for the world largely. It's already happening increasingly. Basically, another factor is as you add more CO2 to the atmosphere, it changes the wavelength of the reflectivity of the CO2, so it actually increases the heat absorption from the infrared radiation. So basically we're losing the circulation of heat in the ocean. The ocean's been storing over 90% of the heat created by global warming. And so we've accumulated over 500 zetajoules of heat since 1995. But now we've accumulated so much that it's no longer being circulated into the ocean depths, and so it will now be released back into the atmosphere at an accelerating rate. And finally, once this CO2 then spikes, the CO2 equivalent, which includes methane, then you get the loss of the stratus clouds, which would be the main form of cooling as the aerosol masking effect on Earth. So that would cause a rapid heating of Earth, another 14 degrees Fahrenheit global average, and that would seal the fate of extinction of life on the planet.